Hi, this is Tony Agnesi, and welcome to this edition of The Storytellers. We're in our third season on radio, but this is our first year that we have video versions of the show, thanks to the Fiat Ministry Network and Patchwork Heart Ministries. They'll be presenting the video versions of the program. Living Bread Radio is our radio host, and the programs will be beginning a little bit later on this fall. And check your listings for Living Bread Radio for the time and date at the station near you. And each week on the program, we feature an inspirational guest, and we discuss their personal faith journey as well as their ministries that they share as authors, as speakers, as bloggers, podcasters, and radio and television hosts. And today is no exception. Matt Estrade is a gerontologist, a speaker and support group facilitator from New Orleans, Louisiana. He hosts the Peace with Dementia podcast, not only for dementia patients, but their important caretakers as well. And Matt is the author of a brand new book, which I've had the pleasure to spend some time with. I try to do it without getting some glare on it, called The Peace with Dementia Rosary, Education, Intentions, and Community. Matt, welcome to the program. Great to have you here.
Thanks, Tony. Great to be here. Thank you.
You know, I think when people hear the word dementia, this is a word that, I don't know, recently seems to be spoken much more. Is that because we're more aware of it or more open about it, or the stigma is less? Why are we hearing so much more about that category of a variety of things under the heading of dementia?
I think it's a few things. I think that we're finding that where in the past it may have gone on, maybe not unnoticed, but undiagnosed, and maybe, what's the right word, sort of attributed to something else, such as just growing old, which, although it's not a normal part of aging, so it's been not diagnosed or misdiagnosed for many people over the years. And I think that that people are speaking out more. I think they're trying to shed that stigma, which I'm grateful that they're doing that, and people are speaking up and saying, like, hey, we need help here.
It's almost, and I'm a little older, and it's almost like every one of us knows someone, a family member, a neighbor, a spouse, and so forth, that has some of these symptoms. Explain to us just exactly what is this broad category dementia, and what are some of the things that fall under that category?
Yeah, and you use the right term, broad category. So dementia is a broad term, a broad category that that is used to describe a syndrome, which is really just a group of symptoms, which may include, many times it's memory impairment. It can be impaired judgment, decision-making, decreased ability to be able to communicate and find the right words, being able to do familiar tasks that you've been doing all your life, being able to drive and find the familiar places. Depth perception can sometimes be impacted. And when we say dementia, it includes some or all of these symptoms, and is contributed by specific diseases. And most people are very familiar with the term Alzheimer's disease. And we think that Alzheimer's disease accounts for at least 50% of these. And then other not so well-known causes or diseases are vascular type dementia, Lewy body type dementia, frontal temporal type dementia, and there are many others.
But how does that differ from me walking into a room to do something, Matt, and then after about 5 minutes, I've done 10 things except the one that I went in the room to do? Is that, and some people get scared by that, is that a reason to be concerned?
Many people do get scared at that, and they should not, because it is normal for people to do what you just described. And even me, I'm in my early 40s, and I will do the same thing. And as long, like a good way to look at it is if you eventually remember why you went in there, or the last task, or you eventually remember where you left your car keys, we attribute that just to being busy, lack of sleep, other things that, just having a lot going on as somebody who's working, or somebody who's retired, or somebody who's a parent.
I know someone like yourself who's dedicated your life to gerontology and to dealing with this, and I know you have a backstory, and I think it would be real important for our viewers and for our listeners, especially if they've got a spouse or a family member, grandma, grandpa, somebody that is suffering from dementia. How did you get involved, Matt, and why move forward as you did to really study it and then dedicate your life and ministry to it?
Yeah, and like you had said earlier, many of us know someone or have known someone with a type of dementia. And for me, that's no exception. And it's what got me started. So in the late 1990s, so I went off to college in 1995, and in my junior and senior year, my grandfather, my mom's father, developed memory impairment and different behavioral issues and patterns. And it was determined that we still don't know what type, but we determined that he had some type of dementia. And my mom kind of kept us at an arm's length. I think she was trying to protect us from, from some of the things he was doing, or from being hurt ourselves, or, seeing grandpa like that. And so she took on the burden, and we went off to college, and my brother and I went off to college, and we kept tabs and kept in touch with mom and things, how grandpa was doing. But that moment when she sat me down and told me and my brother that it never left me. And I always thought there are, with that personal experience, as well as we see the baby boomers, those who were born between 1946 and 1964, which is this very large demographic group, and they're moving through, and just knowing that the dementias are typically your greatest risk factor is age, even though it's not normal aging. Age is one of those important indicators. So just knowing that we were going to have an aging population, and knowing how devastating dementia can be, it just never left me. So I didn't go into immediately. My bachelor's from Auburn University is in hotel restaurant management. So I did that for a little while. I went to grad school and got an MBA. And it wasn't until after Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans in 2005, where, like so many people, were saying, is this a chance to start over or do something new? And for me, I had already gotten into hospitals and healthcare, but I decided in 2006 that I would start my master's in gerontology based on what I saw my mom and my grandfather go through.
So your mom was the primary caretaker for your grandfather.
Correct. Yes, he never did move in because he lived by himself until he moved into a facility. But yeah, she was the only child and the only person that could really take care of him.
Mm-hmm. It's very interesting to me that you correlate this decision making also to Hurricane Katrina. That had to be a devastating effect on a whole lot of people who lost their homes and livelihoods, or at least as they knew them prior to Katrina. Mm-hmm. Is that what happened to your family as well?
Yes, my wife and I, we had gotten married. I guess it was it was March of 2003, March of 2003, and Katrina came 2 years later. And when Katrina hit in August of 2005, we had just moved into a home in her old neighborhood in Chalmette, Louisiana, and that was one of the areas that was hit pretty hard as far as like you talk depth of water. We had 10 feet. That hit the house. Thankfully, we evacuated when we were supposed to. We had insurance, so really it was just a matter of just find out where we're going to live next and all that. Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. Well, let's talk about so you began your career, and what brought about the book. I love the way you set the book up. Tell us a little bit about how the book set up. And I know a lot of people are saying, well, how could you have peace with dementia and tie that to a rosary? How did you do that? Give us a little connection of the rosary and Our Lady to the work you do.
I'd be happy to. So the way that the book is set up, it's built around the rosary. And by that, I mean, we know there are 20 unique decades in the rosary. And so what I did is I went through each of them, and I guess you could say I picked 20 of my favorite lessons or nuggets of wisdom that I've learned through school, but mostly through caregivers, and put them in this book. So with each mystery, there's some kind of lesson about dementia, as well as a specific prayer intention for that knowledge. One example is the second joyful mystery is the visitation, when Mary visited Elizabeth. And I take that opportunity to talk about how important it is that when there is a diagnosis, and even when there's a suspicion and not even an actual diagnosis, that that friends and family continue to visit that loved one who has a memory impairment. Because not only is it the Christian thing to do, it is the research will back up the fact that someone who receives more visits has this virtual or this emotional network around them that helps strengthen them. It's stronger than someone else who does not have as many visits or any visits at all. So even without friends and family not providing physical help, just being around, visits, phone calls, emails, text messages, this can help both the person living with dementia and the care partner tremendously.
And I'm sure you hear all the time that it's real difficult to visit that person because they don't even remember me. They don't know that I'm the son or the daughter, that their son or their daughter. Talk a little bit about that. Explain why that we should put that aside and just care about the person involved.
Yeah, there's not a lot of research about why, but just in talking with care partners over the years and talking to families, and just kind of our collective hypothesis are what you said. Like, people will come up with reasons like they're not going to remember who I am, or they're not even, once I leave, they're not even going to remember why I'm there, or you know what, I want to visit, I want to remember my loved one, my friend who I grew up with. I want to remember them as they were, not as who they are now. So there's a handful of excuses that people leave, and they're not good excuses, but they're valid excuses. I can see where people feel that way, but we can see through education, through teaching people trying to educate people how to have these conversations, and how to emphasize that, look, this is still the person that raised you, or this is the person that you grew up with. And yes, they may or may not remember your name, and they may or may not remember the experience, but once you leave, they're going to be feeling, you're going to leave them with a pleasant moment, possibly a lasting feeling of a good feeling for the rest of the day, if not the week. So it's one of those things where we need to get over ourselves and how uncomfortable it is, and to do the right thing and take that chance. We're taking a chance. We're going out of our comfort zone to reach out, because it's not until we start taking chances, as with many things in life, it's not until we go outside our comfort zone that we could possibly make a positive difference for them. And many times the person who's visiting is going to have an amazing experience
for themselves. Matt, talks a little bit about how the book is being used. I'm sure you had in your mind how you would like to have seen the book used when you wrote it. Is that what's happened, or is there some other uses that people have had for the book?
Well, I do get good feedback from people who are reading the book and going through it by themselves as a care partner, or at times going through the book, or at least saying the rosary with their loved one who has dementia, because we've found that many people remember the prayers. They remember the rosary. They take comfort in the rosary. Something that we're piloting now in Baton Rouge, actually it starts on October 7th on the Feast of Our Lady of the Rosary. There we have a parish there that's going to pilot the first Peace with Dementia Rosary support group. And the parish, they purchased 30 books. I'm going to sign them and deliver them. And they're going to start a weekly support group where / book club, where everybody's reading the same chapters through the course of the book. They meet, they say a rosary, they talk a little bit about the book, and then it also then grows into the support group that many people are familiar with, which is, I'm sharing updates about me and my loved one, and I'm sharing frustrations, and I'm sharing successes, and I'm sharing challenges that we might be able to brainstorm around.
What a great idea to have support group like that, and for people to understand they're not alone in this, that there are others, and to be able to share some ideas and some things that have worked or will work. What a great use of the book to be able to go through it as a group and do that. How do you envision that? You envision others in other parts of the country getting in contact with your ministry to set something up? Tell us a little bit about that, your thoughts on that area.
Yes, that is the vision, that that this is just the first of many Peace with Dementia Rotary groups that are going to expand throughout the country. And so I foresee, parishes contacting me, or parishes getting together, saying like, hey, we have 3 parishes that are close, and we're going to combine our resources and people and have one. I'm starting to develop a facilitator guide and training manual so that anybody who has the heart of a caregiver is able to sort of go through the process, go through the book, have talking points. And even as that, I develop that, I would offer weekly or monthly, things to bring up, or quote. It could be a quote, it could be a passage, something that they want to bring up, that they may want to bring up in the support group. So in the end, we have a network of Rotary groups that have support from me and others that have fresh education in addition to the book, and we just reach as many families as possible.
You mentioned praying the rosary with the with your friend or your relative with dementia. Have you had any stories come back to you as to, even though they may not remember my name, but as we go through the decades of the rosary, that something is happening there, that something is resonating?
Yeah, I don't have many people that per se are going through the book where their loved one's able to read it or understand it, but the book is, at least can be. There are still persons living with dementia that can read and that can read the book. It's probably geared more towards the care partner and sort of being a vehicle and motivation to approach their loved one. And yes, to answer your question, yes, I've heard many stories of someone who was not even persons living with dementia who are nonverbal, so they've lost this ability or interest in speaking. But they're able to find the words to the Hail Mary and to the Our Father and the Glory Be, and the Hail Holy Queen, etc. So, yeah, it's heartwarming to hear that people are still doing that, and there are even nursing homes and assisted living facilities and churches that are encouraging this already. So I'm glad to just be another voice of let's keep it up. Let's introduce the Rosary not just for our salvation, for our own prayers, but also, to engage our loved one in something that's very familiar.
I know the foreword of your book, which I read with interest by your friend Brian LeBlanc, talked about early onset dementia. And I guess a lot of people, when they hear about dementia, that seems to be, I'm going to put it in these words, worse than a death sentence, because it's a progressive thing that will only get worse and never improve. Spend a minute or two. Tell me a little bit about this idea of early onset dementia. Maybe share some thoughts from your friend Brian.
Yeah, so early onset, or it's even known as young onset Alzheimer's, is when someone is diagnosed, or it's a probable diagnosis of someone with dementia prior to 65 years of age. And 65 is just that year that just Medicare is Medicare picks, so it's kind of like that marker. So prior, it's unusual. It's less likely that someone has dementia before they're 65. So that can create a lot more confusion with family and friends, because they don't here's someone like Brian who was in his late 50s when he got diagnosed, and you think it's other things other than dementia is the last thing that you think it is. So they're looking for, other causes of it, not thinking that it's going to be dementia. So that makes it especially, I guess, hard to diagnose because it's not obvious. And it makes it especially tragic because someone prior to prior to the age of 65, they're probably still working. Maybe they just started enjoying their their retirement and starting to travel and do all these things that they've had plans for decades to do. And then I even know people who are in their 40s and they still have children that have this strange, rare, young onset of a dementia, and it's heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm. And do you have some people that are using your book in that way, some of your reflections in the book in that way, to kind of just help them on that as they go through that life journey?
I do, and I think specifically somebody in their early 40s, married to someone that went to high school with my wife, and he's in the very early stages. I'm sorry, not in the early stages, but he's in the young stages of dementia, and he's not doing very well right now. So it's progressed very rapidly for him, and they're not even sure what type of dementia that it is. But them specifically, very faithful Catholic family, have told me how much the book has meant to them, and how the reflections and the education, the reflection have been really edifying. The education has been very validating, so that because they know there are other people that have contributed to this book, and if there are other people out there having these feelings and people not coming around, or trying to figure out how we still keep our love engaged in family traditions.
I know the book, and you mentioned your friend was Catholic, and the book is written from a Catholic perspective. Have you heard from any Protestant groups or other groups that they're getting something from the book and the reflections in the book as well?
Yes, I have. I have a friend who's a caregiver, and they're in the Baptist denomination, and they love the book. They've even put some kind words on Amazon for the book review. But yeah, I think the way she put it was, "Don't let the title fool you. This is for this is for Christians, and you're going to get a lot out of it."
Talk a little bit about your podcast, because I know you also do a podcast in association with this. I had a chance to listen to one of them. Give me a sense of the podcast and what you're doing with that, and how people can access it.
Okay, great. Yeah. So I've had the Peace with the. I'm sorry, I gotta say this right, because I'm gonna, and soon I'll have two podcasts. So I have the Peace with Dementia podcast that I've had since 2018. I think I have 32 episodes, and these have been episodes of me talking about specific gerontological or scientific aspects of dementia and tips. And so I'll have guests, or it's just me. You can find it on iTunes and Stitcher, all the different Podbean, all the different platforms. You can find it on YouTube. It's through the Whole Care Network, which is a network of about a dozen other podcasts that handle some aspect of caregiving. It might be financial, it might be spiritual. So, walking along caregivers in this large area of caregiving. And I have plans for very soon, October of 2020, to launch the Peace with Dementia Rosary podcast, which will be built specifically around the book, Christian and Catholic guests that join me to talk about different aspects of dementia. It could be medical providers, it could be authors. But I'm very excited about that. I already have the episodes because I've been having guests on my monthly Dementia Rosary and Q&A since June. So I'm going to utilize the audio from that into the beginnings of that podcast in October.
Fantastic. Where would someone go about getting the book, Matt?
It's all over. I first ask that they go to dementiarosary.com, and the reason is because while you can get it everywhere, you can get it on Amazon. Purchasing it from my website helps to keep more of the funds in the ministry, so that I can use it for web hosting, and use it for PR, and use it for all the different little MailChimp subscriptions, all these different things that keep a ministry going. That helps. But however people get it is great for me.
Yeah, I do the same thing with book sales, and people realize if we sell them through our website, we get to keep more of the proceeds, which allows us to put that money back into the ministry. How about yourself? How if somebody is really interested and would like to get or follow you on social media, follow your podcast, give us some of the addresses where that might happen.
Okay, I'll kind of rattle off a list, but I'll say that overall the best place is to go to the website, dementiarosary.com, because there you'll see the blog. You can access the podcast, at least the current podcast that I have right now. And the blog. So I do. I have a weekly newsletter that has a new blog article every week. But I'm on. If you name it, I'm probably on it. So I'm on Facebook and YouTube, on Twitter, and not Pinterest, Instagram. So a whole handful of those. But the hub I'd say is DementiaRosary.com, because there you can find all the other places. And I do want to mention the Dementia Prayer Wall that is also at the website. So this is an opportunity for anybody to, with the click of a button and entering a few their first name and their intention, they'll make their prayer intention accessible for visitors of the website who can pray. And then after they prayed for your intention, they can click a button that says, "I prayed for you." And then you get an email that says, "So that Tony prayed for your intention."
What a terrific idea. What a great idea. Matt, this has been a very quick half hour, and I really thank you for joining us. The book, again, is The Peace with Dementia Rosary, Education, Intentions, and Community. If you're a caregiver of someone with one of these types of dementias, this is a book that I'm sure will be a blessing to you. Matt, thank you so much for being with us today.
My pleasure. God bless, Tony. Thank you.
God bless you. Well, that's our program for today. My thanks to Matt Estrade, who's a gerontologist, speaker, and a wonderful, wonderful author, blogger, podcaster on the subject of dementia. His new book, The Peace with Dementia Rosary, is available everywhere. The program premieres at 6 p.m. on Wednesday evenings, and it is available on YouTube at the Fiat Ministry Network, Patchwork Heart Ministries, at TonyAgnesi.com, and at my YouTube page, youtube.com/Tony Agnesi. Be sure to subscribe while you're there so you don't miss a single program. The radio program is produced by the Living Bread Radio Network and airs on their stations. You can check their schedule for times and dates. The program is also available on the StoryTellersRadio.com and on Breadbox Media, the Catholic podcasting site. And all of the podcasts are available everywhere you get your podcasts: iTunes, Google, Stitcher, YouTube, you name it. This is Tony Agnesi. Thank you so much for being with us. We'll see you next week on another edition of the Storytellers.